Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council meeting. This is a regularly scheduled council meeting. Today's date is Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. We'll call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Baraboo,
Present.
Friedlieb,
Here.
Paulson,
Present.
Beyondich,
Present.
Johnson,
Here.
Barancelli. Here. Cuffey.
Here. Would you, everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and welcome to everybody who's listening at home tonight. Just for your public's information, we have staff here today and some of our contract work. All the counselors are present to participate. We have Eric Wedge from DSGW, our architect. We have Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. We've got Sherry Erickson, our Finance HR Director, and John Sullivan, our Community Development Planner. And also, of course, our City Administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt, is there anybody on the line?
We have Counselor Paulson and Jody Grabanowski, Library Director.
Hey, Jody Grabanowski, our Library Director, is on the line along with Counselor Beyondich. Okay, we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, which is a public forum. There's no one on the line from the public who wants to speak, and there's no one in the audience this evening. So we'll move to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. The following items will be enacted by one motion unless a counselor or a citizen of the City of Virginia requests that one of these items be considered separately. Item 5.1 is the approval and corrections of the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on February 9th, 2021. 5.2 is the adoption of Finance Resolution number 21-004, the schedule of bills. Item 5.3 is approve the exempt permit application for the Mesaba Range Student Advocates for Human Services to conduct a raffle at the Mesaba Range College on April 22nd, 2021. These are the consent agenda items for consideration today and looking for council action.
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll support.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the consent agenda, supported by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move to item 6, appearances. No one is scheduled to appear before the council this evening, so move to item 7, unfinished business. We have no unfinished business on the agenda for scheduling today. Item 8, discussion items. We took care of all that at the last council meeting, and so we do have no discussion items moving forward. We do have a lengthy committee report, so we'll move to item 9, the committee reports. Item 9.1, the committee of the whole meeting that was held on February 16th, 2021. And we'll turn this portion of the city council meeting over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. At the February 16th Committee of the Whole Meeting, Park and Recreation Director Brian Silber requested authorization to seek a request for proposals for the MEC security package. He did clarify this would be for the security cameras, not the audio and visual equipment that were already out for an RFP on. It was moved and supported to authorize staff to prepare the RFP or the request for proposal for the security system at the MEC.
I will move.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve the authorization of staff to prepare the request for proposals for the security system at the MEC. Is
I'll
there
support.
support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Quotes for the architectural services for the police garage repair were presented to the council regarding rebuilding the garage. It was moved and supported to accept the base bid from SEH in the amount of $16,400 for the architectural services for the repair and restoration of the police garage.
Okay, this is come from our committee of the whole meeting.
I will move.
Councilor Johnson moves to approve. Is there support?
I'll support.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Paulson, to accept the base bid from SCH in the amount of $16,400 for the architectural services for the police garage. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Britt, this includes the extension if we want to extend to the price, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bearable. Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Counselor Friedlieb.
Just one question, and I don't know if anybody would know this or not, but from the history of having architectural services provided to the city of Virginia, has SEH done anything for us in architectural services as opposed to engineering, which is all I've ever known them to do?
It's been a while, but yes, they have.
They have. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, Counselor Freelip, they have a whole separate department that does their architectural work. It's not the office up here. It comes out another part of their organization, the architectural work. Just for your information.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Matt Reed, our city engineer of record from SCH, brought to the committee of the whole the request for the approval of the preliminary plat named the Historic Finntown Flyway Plat. It was moved and supported at the committee of the whole meeting to adopt the plat.
And this is zoned commercial. Thank you.
I'll move to approve, Mayor.
Counselor Paulson moves to approve the plat. Is there support?
I'll support under the assumption that this is not ethnically sensitive.
Support by Counselor Freely. Further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Well, I mean, I'm a Finlander myself, at least 50% of me is. And I love the name, but I'm just hoping that it's not insensitive to others who might view it differently. I think it's always been called that as long as I've lived in this town, so I'm supportive of it, but I just hope we're sensitive to anybody that might think otherwise.
Yes. Thank you. I live in Sherwood Forest. That's my plat. Okay, thank you, Counselor Freely. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The Evelyn, Virginia Airport Authority brought to the committee of the whole the temporary land license for Mr. Ted McHugh. The land license would allow Mr. McHugh to access his garage from the seaplane-based property, which is owned by the cities of Evelyn and Virginia. Mr. McHugh previously had access to his property through the seaplane base when it was privately owned. And Mr. McHugh has reached out to the airport authority to request a legal agreement that would allow him access continually through that area to his garage. City Attorney Lindsay explained that a 2-year license would be freely revocable at any point, and he also noted that an easement would be a permanent agreement to access the land, and this lease that we would discuss would be a formalized lease. It was moved and supported to approve the 2-year temporary land license with Ted McHugh for a driveway access through the Sky Harbor seaplane-based property for a rental fee of $200 per year.
Okay, thank you.
I would make that motion and include on it to then forward it to Evelyn because I believe they have to approve it also.
Moved by Counselor Johnson with the codicil that it be moved to Evelyn for their consideration as well. Is there support for this? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Further discussion? Counselor Bearable.
Yeah, I have an issue with this. I know the attorney explained it to us, but I still think it'd be a lot easier and less burdensome on an individual to either give him a lease or an easement to his property instead of a license. One of the concerns I have in here is the amount that we put in there for liability insurance, $500,000 to $1.5 million per occurrence that he has to have if there are. Well, it's a road. There's nothing on it. There's no buildings, nothing. Where are you going to have a liability issue other than something on the land? Unless if a plane were to crash there, that's part of the runway anyway. So you wouldn't be liable on that. The airport authority would. I would like to see that clause let him put his own liability on, like most of us have when we have either a lease or something like a hunting shack. I put my own liability on for my own protection. I don't like that clause, so I can't support this right now because that's expensive, 300 to 500, 1.5 million. I'm speaking from experience. That gets pretty pricey on it, and you have to renew that every year. So I don't see what there is there, except all there is land, a road. His buildings and stuff are all on his own property. They're adjacent to the west of that road easement that had been on that easement, but he's been using that road for 50 years with his family. I would think he'd have a right to adverse possession on that piece of property if he went to court with it. So that's my thoughts on this, but he doesn't want to do that. He wants to be a good neighbor to the authority. But I had a conversation with him today over this, and his concern is about he doesn't mind the $200 a year for the licensing, but the liability insurance he's checked on that. It's very expensive, so he'd like to have that either reduced or taken out of there and put the liability have to have his own policy.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think part of the thought from the Airport Commission is that he needs to move his driveway onto his property. I think that's one of the things as we look forward. Whatever we use that airport property for, if it stays with the airport or not, he's got a lot of space there to be able to do that. And I think that's one of the, if I remember correctly, Mayor, that was something we did talk about, is that there was an intention of moving the driveway so that it was all on his land, and in the future it wouldn't be an issue.
Thank you. Being a member of the Airport Authority as well, I think the goal and objective of the Airport Authority at that meeting was to give a temporary access to Mr. McHugh in order to allow him the opportunity, a time frame, when in this particular case it's 2 years, to find another way in which to build a roadway or a driveway that's not on or would cross that property, and that was the purpose of the license that was explained by our city attorney. I do also have an issue, though, with the requirement of carrying liability insurance. I don't know if that somehow can be waived, or, I know it is a significant expense, but I think our goal and objective was to work with Mr. McHugh, because he's been utilizing that for all these years, him and his family. His family, his predecessor, it's a lineage for his family. So we want to make sure that there wasn't any adverse effect, that he would have the ability and some time in which to move that if possible. And he's apparently agreed to the $200 a year license fee. I mean, for me personally, at that meeting, and we talked about that, I didn't think there was a need to have him pay for a license. If it is, maybe just $1 a year, just to make sure that we have an agreement that's going to help him give some time to make sure that he can make that driveway so he would not have access over the grass runway. I think that's the goal and objective. And from a private perspective, it's different. But because it's now publicly owned, there's some issues there. And so I don't like the fact that that we were requiring a liability insurance, because it's very expensive to access his garage. And the $200 a year fee, I think, is even though he has agreed to it, which is fine. I mean, we're trying to help him on. It's a 2-year process moving forward. And I do understand the difference between the easement, which would be more permanent, as opposed to the license, which is temporary, revocable, and easily dissolved, with both parties in the event, there's some compliance or a change in requirement for access. So, Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. The way I'm reading it in the contract is it's based on Minnesota statute for tort liability limits. So it looks like that's why the amounts are the way that they are, because they're following the tort liability set by Minnesota state statute. My question is, do we have a dollar amount on that insurance coverage? And then does that dollar amount come out of the Airport Authority and not of the city's budgets? Each city puts in X amount of dollars per year. So would that I don't know if that was discussed at your meeting, but would that come out of the airport authority's budget?
Britt?
No, he would have to get this insurance, not us. So the licensee, so Mr. McHugh would have to get that insurance, not us. It would be to ensure that if something happens on the property, we're not the ones he has insurance to cover anything that may happen through his use.
Well, I understand it, but knowing from my own personal experience, the $300,000 liability insurance that I have on my property, which has a hunting shack on it, not just a road, is $142 a year. Now, when you have, if you don't have anything on it, I don't know for sure. He didn't share that with me. I think we should take a look at that before we finalize this. That's why there's a difference between a lease and a license. On a lease, you don't have to have a liability if you don't want to. I don't have to carry it, and I have a lease, not a license. And that's why I'm advocating going a different direction on this. An easement can be made with language that's not permanent also. I've been around long enough to know we've done a couple of those. You put a sunset on a easement. If we're willing to help him with being able to, he's concerned about access, so to be on a corner, and he's not sure the county will give him a right to put a road in on a corner. So that becomes an issue for him. So he's going to have to move the road maybe a long ways, and he hasn't determined that at this point. So what he can do with the county, I just don't want to have the gentleman have to pay a lot of dollars for when he's been using that. Family's been using that area for 50 years, and we know that property is probably worth quite a bit of money.
It was privately owned when he was using it previously.
Yeah, I understand that, Brett. I understand that. I know the whole history on that and stuff. But that's just my point of view. I just don't agree with the license enforcing him to carry that much liability insurance until we find out exactly what it'll cost him. I did not ask him that question today. He called me actually today to talk about this lease or this license.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson.
Was Mr. McHugh informed that this was going to be discussed at the committee of the whole meeting last week? I'm just concerned that it's being brought up here instead of when we could have had the attorney talk about it, and those questions could have been vetted last week as opposed to tonight. And that's just, and you know, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I would have hoped that he would have been notified so he could have been here on Tuesday to present his concerns, that we could have had this, because now it sounds like we're heading towards putting it off for another at least 2 weeks. And then Evelyn needs to address it, and I don't know how often they meet. And so should he even be using the land right now? I mean, what liability does the airport authority have with him using the property now without an agreement? So those are questions that's why I asked that tonight. So I'm ready to vote yes and move this forward. Evelyn can vet that. We can vet it and bring it up again at the next committee meeting, but I'm ready to move forward.
Thank you. I think there was some discussion at the committee of the whole meeting. I think the attorney did explain the difference between a license and a lease and what his recommendation was moving forward. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you. So I had it mixed up, so my apologies on that. And I would agree, I'm fine with voting yes. And if Mr. McHugh was made aware of this at the time, was he at the meeting, at the last airport commission meeting?
Yeah, but they did not have, Julian, they did not have this full legal agreement. And he only saw this just the other day, this whole full legal agreement. He didn't see it, and we didn't have it at our committee of the whole meeting either at that time. We only had what the attorney told us.
So at
I
this
did not
point,
see this whole legal agreement until we got it on Friday from Pam.
Well, please continue.
So at this point, what we're being asked to do is vote to present this offer. Is this considered an offer that if he agrees to the language within this license offer?
Well, it is, he wants access, right?
Right.
And in order to get access, he's asked the new airport authority for access to that, and this was brought up on the Evelyn side about the liability issues, how he accesses it, and we discussed it. I think Councilor Johnson and I and the Evelyn representatives as well talked about how we can, facilitate his access there without, with the least amount of cost associated with that, either to us or to him. And so when we discussed it, I thought that it was for, my recollection is that we agreed to give him access and to come up with some type of an agreement. And there was some discussion about, well, it should be a lease, what should it be? And so we reached out to our city attorney, and this is what he came up with. So I know that he explained it to us at the last committee, the difference between a lease and a license. From my perspective, Councilor Paulson and councilors and staff, that, I'm ready to move forward and vote yes for this. If we need to have a conversation from the airport authority level with Mr. McHugh to make some kind of a adjustment to that, we could certainly do that, I think, moving forward and bring that back. But I think there should be some agreement in place, at least, and I am concerned about the liability insurance required, but the statute says so. Our attorney recommends that this is the way we go. So, even though it could be burdensome on Mr. McHugh, I think it's prudent just to follow the law and follow the recommendations by staff.
Well, thank you, that's what I was getting at. So based on if we vote yes and approve this, if there's any decision to be made between the airport authority and Mr. McHugh, it would be had at a later date.
Yes.
Then I would be comfortable moving forward with that for sure.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
So Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Baraboo.
how do we guarantee that it'll go back if there's, wants to be further discussion? Once he signs this, it becomes a non-issue anymore for us in the city of Evelyn. What if he doesn't decide to sign it? Then do we just kick him off and don't let him use anything?
Well, I think
We need to have a letter of agreement somehow that we're going to take this back to take one more look at it. That's my personal opinion on this. I'm not going to vote for it, but you've got enough votes to get it through, so I'm doing what I promised I would do to look at this, because I hadn't seen it before until tonight, so.
Okay, anything further, Councilor Baraboo?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion and support on the floor? We have a motion and support to approve. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Roll call, please, Pam.
Paulson,
Aye.
Beyondich,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Aaronzelli. Yes. Huffy,
Aye.
Baraboo,
No,
Friedli.
Aye.
A motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you. We received a request from the city of Gilbert regarding the Virginia wastewater treatment plant taking in 3,000 to 6,000 gallons of their biosolids per week on a temporary basis. People Service has reviewed the lab results from Gilbert and do not see any problems that this would cause. An initial load will be run through the plant to see how our plant handles their different type of effluent. It was moved and supported to accept Gilbert's biosolids on a temporary basis and at the rate normally charged for the service to other municipalities and vendors,
And the key here is they're being charged for the biosolids.
just like everybody
And-
else.
And our staff, both our contractor, People Services, and our Public Works Director agree that this is something that we can do. And won't have any adverse effect on our wastewater treatment plant. Okay, thank you. Looking for council
I'll
action.
move the approval.
Counselor? Okay, Counselor Freely moves to approve, supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We had a request from Fire Chief Alan Lewis for purchasing chairs for the new fire hall. They had received a donation of a table that seats 14 people, and they needed some new chairs to go around the table. It was moved and supported to approve the purchase of 12 wooden chairs for the fire hall from Brownie Furniture contingent upon the removal of sales tax from the invoice.
So moved.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Barnzelli, to approve the request for the police department for these chairs. Is there any further discussion? You know, these chairs are wooden, obviously, but the table, the big, huge conference table that was donated by a private individual and with the fire logo on it, it's just beautiful. So these chairs will accommodate that, and they're actually cheaper than buying the ergonomically signed chairs. So it'll look good in there, and it'll satisfy their needs. So is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Fire Chief Alan Lewis also discussed the need to set a fee schedule for the Arrowhead Urban Search and Rescue Team, or the USAR team. It was moved and supported to adopt the proposed resolution for the Urban Search and Rescue Vehicle Fees and Services fee schedule
Which will be reviewed periodically,
annually.
annual. Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
Counselor Paulson moves to approve. Is there support?
Support for discussion?
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. So it's been moved and supported to adopt or approve the fee schedule for the Arrowhead Urban Search and Rescue Team as presented. Is further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
And Britt, it does say in there, it does say that we're going to review that annually, or is that just the goal?
It does say that we will review, that the fire chief and deputy fire chief will review annually.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Fire Chief Alan Lewis also discussed a request to purchase the licensing for levrom software for the fire department. This software is what assists with the ability to create heat maps and also mapping of targeted areas for various calls, fire calls, ambulance calls, all the way down to narcotic type calls. You can track just about anything with this software. We have been a trial user for the last 2 years, so it's something we have found advantageous and would like to continue to use. It was moved and supported to approve purchasing the outright licensing for levrom software at the cost of $9,750 with an annual maintenance and support contract of $2,925.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve the purchase, outright purchase of the licensing of levrom software for the fire department,
I'll support, Mayor.
and supported by Counselor Bearable at an initial cost of $9,750 with an annual maintenance and support contract of $2,925. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We had discussion at the committee of the whole regarding the purchasing policy. It was moved and supported to refer the purchasing policy back to staff for further review, and a revision will be presented to the next committee of the whole meeting on March 2nd. Additionally, we discussed request from Community Relations Officer or the School Resource Officer, Lieutenant Swenson. He requested the utilization of discretionary funds for 2021. In 2020, we had offered him $500. He has produced receipts for that $500 that he has expended. At the committee of the whole meeting, we approved using $1,000 from the city council's budget for 2021 for the use of discretionary funds for the operations of the Community Relations Officer.
I will move that.
Counselor Johnson moves to approve a $1,000 discretionary fund from out of the city council's budget for the community relations officer. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion?
Just one quick question.
Yes, Councilor
Britt, that's
Bearable.
in the form of a resolution since it's spending, isn't it? I didn't see a resolution in the packet. We should have one, shouldn't we?
Yes.
So do we need to waive that written resolution? Okay, I'm going to move that we waive the written resolution for that project before we vote on the actual motion.
Support.
So we had a motion and a second on the floor. We didn't vote on it. Now we have another motion.
Technically, we need to have the resolution as the motion, basically, and waive it first and then have the
So
resolution.
can we include in the original motion that was made that's on the floor now to waive the written resolution?
I guess we could do it that way, sure.
So who was the maker of the motion?
I would amend my motion to include the waiving of
And
the
I support,
written.
and I support it.
Okay, so we'll amend the formal motion to include waiving the written resolution to adopt the approval of the $1,000 for the community relations officer. Okay, so that's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Having talked with Lieutenant Swanson about what he did with the money last year, just off the top of my head, I would bet he got a 2 to 3 time return on that $500 investment. So what he'll be able to do with the $1,000, I think, will come back even many more times than that. He's very creative and he's got a lot of good community contacts. So I think this is a great investment into what he's doing and into the community.
Yeah, thank you. And I had an opportunity to witness firsthand the community service officers in action yesterday at the NLC Center, and I was called to go there by Lieutenant Swanson from a student that was there and faculty staff. It was really heartwarming to see the interaction that he has in the communications and the decorum and just the grasp on what he can do in developing relationships at that level. So I think it's a great opportunity, and this $1,000 discretionary fund will be spent wisely. So thank you. Any further discussion, Councilor Bearable?
Just one kudos for Officer Swenson. I've had 3 individuals in the community compliment me on his work he's been doing, and they're happy that we put him on board in this capacity. So just want to give him that shout out.
Thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Our Community Development Planner, John Sullivan, reviewed the request for $3,000 from the City of Virginia to participate in the Northeast Minnesota Mine Tour project. The project has partnered with CETA, Visit Grand Rapids, Iron Range Tourism Bureau, Itasca County Historical Society, ARDC, Club Mesabi, and the Great River Energy Mesabi Trail Tour to offer signage that would be utilized for wayfinding and for tourist sites at each location, at each city. After further discussion with the city administrator and the Park and Rec director, Sullivan stated that he felt it would be a good fit for a joint partnership with VITA, Revive Virginia, and the Virginia Community Foundation. Sullivan suggested that there's joint participation of all 3 entities with each contribution of $1,000 per group to obtain the advertising amenities in the city of Virginia. That would be locations of 3 signs within the city of Virginia for $3,000. It was moved and supported to approve the letter of support for the project and to authorize payment from the VITA fund in the amount of $1,000 to participate in the Northeast Minnesota Mine Tour project, contingent upon Revive Virginia and the Virginia Community Foundation participating, as well as a joint collaboration.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve the letter of support.
Councilor Freely moves to approve the letter of support. Is there approve the letter? Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor Bearable. Further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question on this. Was VITA made aware of the presentation and then also made aware that this will be coming out of VITA's budget?
They are aware of it, but we're going to talk about it at their meeting also.
Okay,
Just let
and
them
then
know.
before we vote on it, does it need to come through VITA first?
Yes, and it's also contingent upon Revive Virginia and the Virginia Community Foundation. And I know Mr. Sullivan has reached out to both those groups to get on their next agendas to discuss it as well. if
So do
could
we
just
need to
approve
vote
the-
on this tonight?
If we could just approve the letter of support and hold on the $1,000 for now, I think that was kind of where.
I would rather defer and approve the letter of support and then defer to the VITA to bring it forward to the council.
And I think just a note, the motion at the committee, the whole meeting was to approve the $1,000 contingent upon the participation by the others. And if they didn't participate, of course, then it would be moot. But, so, we have a motion and approval on the floor for this yet? So we do. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the letter of support for the project and authorize the payment from VITA in the amount of $1,000 to participate in the Northeast Minnesota Mine Tour project contingent upon Revive Virginia and Virginia Community Foundation joint collaboration. But
Do we have the authority to authorize the payment, though? I was essentially approving the letter of support, so I mean, that's the question at hand.
okay, so the motion on the floor, just so I'm clear, and that we're clear, that the motion on the floor is to approve the letter of support for the project, but not to authorize the payment. Okay, so the motion on the floor and support is to approve the letter of support for this project. Is there any further discussion?
Are
Councilor
we going to, in
Bearable.
that letter, request that both the foundation and VITA look at that from the letter of support, or we're going to do that separate?
No, we're doing separate. The letter of support was just to the group that's doing the Northeast Minnesota tour. They are applying for grants, so they need letters of support from various
Okay,
agencies.
that's clear. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Bearable. Moved and supported. Once again, just to be clear, to approve the letter of support for the project for the Northeast Minnesota Mine Tour. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
As I stated, Mr. Sullivan has reached out to those two groups. Once we get information back from those two groups and VITA, the beginning of March, will come back to the committee.
I did see a really nice news blip on the internet and on regular news television about this program moving forward, so it's getting a lot of play. Thank you.
At the committee of the whole meeting, it was moved and supported to declare city surplus, and we have quite a sale of things that we'd like to get rid of and to approve the sale of the city surplus to be conducted.
So you're just looking for a motion to declare the city plus and approve the sale.
Correct.
The method of how we sell it, it will be determined.
Will be determined, and then we come back to you with the bids for authorization to sell.
Thank you. Okay, looking for council action on 9.1L.
I'll move to declare the surplus and approve the sale.
Moved by Councilor Johnson and supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
At the committee of the whole meeting, we had a letter of request from Revive Virginia to conduct a food truck festival on Chestnut Street on 3 dates this year, June 19th, September 18th, November 20th, and a request to authorize a reduced vendor fee, city assistance with garbage and barricades, and seating in the way of picnic tables if allowed with COVID standards.
Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
Councilor Paulson moves to approve the request from Revive Virginia to conduct a food truck festival on Chestnut Street, June 19th, September 18th, and November. Supported by Councilor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to refer the transient merchant ordinance to city staff for further review of the ordinance and the permitting fee schedule.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Johnson, supported by Councilor Barnzelli. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That is all I have from that meeting. We were adjourned at 11:20 that day.
Thank you very much. I'll move to item 9.2 on the agenda, which is the Personnel Committee meeting that was held on February 19th, 2021 at 8:30 a.m. This was the Personnel Committee only. It was not a committee of the whole meeting. The committee members are myself, Councilor Freelieb, and Councilor Paulson. And we talked about 3 items that were on the agenda from this meeting. The first is we discussed the extension of the memorandum of understanding for the dual role firefighter / EMT CPAP tests for Kaylee Fallows and Jason Kraus. As you know, COVID and that's been delayed over and over in the training. I think there's 3 people that need to have that done, and so in order to them to accomplish and continue to do their job, they need to extend that a little further. I think they're scheduled in May, so thank you. And so it was moved and supported at the Personnel Committee level to approve the extension of the memorandum of understanding for the dual firefighter EMT.
Also move, Mayor.
Moved by Counselor Bearable. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this going to be a problem with any new hires moving forward, needing to extend possibly upon new hires?
We need to hire a dual role. There might be, if they are hired before May.
Okay,
May is the first class in Minnesota coming up.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 9.2B, there was some discussion about the ASME positions that are to be included in the contract. There's some changes being considered, and it was moved and supported at committee level to appoint 2 members of the Personnel Committee, Counselor Paulson and Counselor Friedrich, to represent the Personnel Committee in a task force with the city staff to meet with ASME to review the proposed positions to be included in the ASME contract. And do you have anything else you'd like to add, Counselor Paulson or Counselor Friedrich, to this?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Britt?
I just want to add that I think we're meeting March 5th. Is that Friday? Is the date we set to have that meeting.
And the positions are, there's some changing in some of the positions moving forward. So we've got our staff and council involvement in that. So they'll come back to the whole council with a recommendation.
Yes, it's regarding the reorganization of the engineering department. And
Right.
that's going to
Okay,
be.
thank you. Okay, and then item 9.2C was moved and supported at committee level to adjust the staffing in the Public Works Department. We're not adding staff, but we are decreasing the number of repair crew positions from 9 to 7 and increasing the heavy operator positions from 5 to 7 to accommodate and accomplish what we need to do. These repair crew positions will still in the contract. When the heavy equipment operations is not required, those individuals will continue to do their work in the repair crew. But in the event that heavy equipment is needed, they're doing some of that work now. And so this is to recognize the work that they're being done. So it was moved and supported to adjust the staffing levels from reducing the number of repair crew positions from 9 to 7 and to increase the heavy equipment operations from 5 to 7. So that's where we're at. So it was moved and supported to make that change in the Public Works Department. And AFSCME is on board with that moving forward. They were at the meeting with staff and at our personnel meeting as well. Is anything else that anyone would like to add to that? Moving forward, Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it was a good discussion on behalf of the committee and the ASME representatives that were here. And just to let the general public know and the rest of the council know that the people moving from the repair portion into the heavy equipment status level, they all possess their Class A licenses, so it will not be an issue going forward with training or timing of test taking. So I just want to let the general public know that.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Anyone else?
I do, Mayor.
Councilor Bearable.
I don't see why we're even doing it this way. Why do we have to designate that these positions are moving up and down? Why can't we interchange them? Because we're doing a pay differential when that happens anyway. So I don't see why you have to do that, because if somebody gets moved to a position and they don't want to move back, how do we enforce it? They go up to the other position. We've run into issues like that over the years. I'd like to see it just be where they can work back and forth if they got the licensure, and we do the pay differential, because that's what we do anyway. Correct?
Correct.
Is there
We
a
also
reason?
do-
Is there a reason for doing the other way?
Yes, we have a retirement coming up in May also, so we do need to get some staff trained.
So you don't think we'll have an issue with moving them back and forth between the two segments, repair crew and the other? Well, it doesn't really state that in there. I would like something stated that we have the right as a management to move them back and forth between the positions.
We do, and so we have 2 repair crew staff that are continually, almost daily, working as a heavy equipment operator.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. They're getting paid to
I
move
agree
up.
that, but it would make, we have more heavy equipment duties than we do repair crew duties right now. We need more heavy equipment operators. The way AFSCME works is we're supposed to, if we're going to start pulling from repair crew, we're supposed to be rotating. So you could come into work one day, and Bill Hennis gave a great example. Their garbage truck driver started at 6, and it
Well, I
comes
understand
until
that. I
7.
understand what you're saying.
Right, so there's an hour delay then recycling our garbage because we don't have any other heavy equipment operators to put in there. We have to see which repair crews are not already obligated for the day, who can we slot in there? It just causes quite a mess.
So we just move somebody on that daily if somebody calls in sick or something.
That's what we've been
Does that give us the authority to do that then? Or Mr. Hennis the authority to do that?
Yep, they would like to move them permanently to the heavy equipment position. So it's not
So
juggling.
then what if we short our crews in the summer when we need a repair crews? How do we move them back?
Heavy equipment's the top of the list, so they have to work down. They have to do everything from the top
Is
down.
that in our contract?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I wasn't familiar with that portion of the contract then. Okay, thank you, Brett.
Yep, and they did have a very good explanation at the meeting about that heavy equipment is the one that does everything from the bottom to the top.
Okay, as
Whereas
long as that's in our
repair crews
contract, that's
don't
fine.
have to go up. They don't have to go into heavy equipment if they
Okay,
don't
that
want
makes
to.
more sense now the way you explained it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. So it has been moved and supported at committee level. So looking for some council action at the council level. Thank you.
Also,
Good recovery.
Mayor, also move then, since I have a good explanation now to
Okay.
change the repair crew positions from 9 to 7 and move the heavy equipment operation positions from 5 to 7.
Okay, moved by Councilor Bearable. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Further discussion? Councilor Freely. We're good, okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes the Personnel Committee report. Moving to item 10, Commission Liaison Reports. Does any city councilor have a commission liaison report they'd like to give this evening?
I do, Mayor.
Councilor Bearable.
Yes, on Monday, the 22nd, we had the Public Utilities Commission meeting, so I'll report it was just very short and stuff. They had election of new officers. The president is Mr. Jeff Marwick. The vice president is Bruce Johnson, and the secretary is Jim Petrosky. Actually, it's no change from the year before. They just revoted on the positions and it kept them the same. They had one incident report for safety. They had one slip and fall on ice, but there were no restrictions and no lost time. They have a small water leak on the under bridge water line going under the bridge. So far, it just seems like it's a small, they don't know where it's coming from. They're going to be flying a drone and stuff to see if they can figure out where it actually is going to be, and then they're going to have to do some type of repair, and they have special type bucket trucks, and it'll be something that they'll have a cost to, and they have to go and take a look at that to see where they can take it apart. They've had some non-payment disconnect issues. They just have one disconnect so far in the first cycle, and then there's some more coming up. They had about 6 altogether because of non-payment. I can't give names because that's confidential. They made a motion to approve our projected street projects that we gave them the list on, as we needed their approval to move forward with that. So the 21-22 cycle and the 23-24 cycle have been approved by the utilities because they share in costs. They have the 306 line that we had trouble with, the electric line. It's in full operation now. It's been going for a full week. They haven't had any problems, so they think they've solve the problem with that, with Minnesota Power stepping up and doing some of those changes that they requested. They're running 65,000 pounds of steam out of the gas boiler number 11, and they're running the number 7 coal boiler. They've had 2 water breaks so far, which is pretty good for this cold weather, but they expect we'll have a greater amount when the frost starts going out in March or April. So that concludes my report.
Could I ask a question, please?
Thank you, Councilor Bearable. Councilor Freely.
I did have an inquiry, Charlie, this week from a person who bought a house in town as a new resident of the city of Virginia. And when they came into the home, they found that they had a very antiquated heating system that's fuel oil. And they were asking if they changed to gas, if they could have the fee waived in order to get gas to that house in that neighborhood.
I would guess, Mr. or Councilor Friedlib, if they contact the utility department and explain the situation, that it was one of those that was probably winterized and stuff and not occupied at the time, they will probably waive that fee, I would assume, if it's in the area that we're converting. But that's just my personal opinion at this point. I would contact Mr. Hofdahl at the utilities, but I think they'll make an exception if it's in that area since the house wasn't occupied.
Yeah, I'd like to see you encourage them to do that
Well,
on behalf of that resident.
Yeah, I certainly will do that, but I believe they will
Okay.
do that. They know there's a few houses that were winterized. There was like, I don't know, something like 30-some houses in that section that,
I believe both houses on each side have gotten converted to gas, so it
yeah,
wouldn't
so
be
it
a
wouldn't
big
be,
deal.
it wouldn't be
It'd
hard,
easy to
it
do.
wouldn't be hard for them to convert and put a meter in. So I
Okay.
will talk to the utilities on that if you'd like me to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, Council Bearable, there's a leak on the water on the new bridge?
Yes, it's on the new bridge.
Okay,
on
when
the
you
end-
said the bridge, my first thought was the one over
No,
on
no, no,
Bailey's
it's,
Lake.
I'm sorry, it's the
So,
new, it's a new
okay.
bridge. It's a new bridge going to Midway, and they see an icicle floating down off of it, so they know there's a small leak. So far, there hasn't any gushing water out. They think it's one of the, without actually looking at it, they think it's one of the joints that's leaking a little bit, because those joints, they felt may have some issues in the future, so they'll be droning it. Now, I think SEH is going to drone it this next week to see exactly where the leak is. They can't quite tell from up above. And then they'll be looking at sometime when the weather warms up a little bit. If it's just a small leak, they'll fix it later on in the year.
Thank you. And then I have a question about the closure of 6th Avenue. I don't remember them coming to us and asking to close the street. Isn't that something they should have come to us for? And I drove around there. It's not well marked. They've just got a couple barricades and you can drive around this outside. And why are they blocking the entire 100 block
I
of?
think what they're doing, and it wasn't brought up, they just passed the closure, and I'm assuming it's for that pony boiler that they're putting in, because they got to block a whole street to get that in with cranes and stuff to get them into those that big garage door they put in. And then they got to hoist it up to a second floor, I believe. So I believe that's the reason for it, Councilor Johnson, but I can't swear for sure. But yeah, you're probably right. They probably should have come to us to ask us for a closure on the street. And I don't know when that's going to take place, the actual.
It's closed as
It's
of,
closed already,
on my
okay.
way over here at 4:30 today. It was not well marked though.
Yeah, it wasn't closed yesterday, so.
Thank you.
So I think maybe Mr. Hofdahl usually coordinates that with our Public Works Department, usually coordinates that with Bill Hennis. Maybe we could just make an inquiry to maybe get some additional information on how that process went for the closure. So we could certainly do that. Thank you. Okay, any other questions for Councilor Bearable with respect to his report from the Department of Public Utilities? Okay, seeing none.
Mayor,
Noah,
I have to, one little thing.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor
I forgot
Bearable.
This is important too. Just to let the residents of Virginia know, with this huge cold weather cycle that we had, there will be an adjustment on the gas bills coming out in the next month or so. They'll be on the upward end. I have to tell you this because they have a contract for an allotment of so much gas, and they went over that contract, so then they have to pay the higher price for the overage that they've used this past month in this cold weather. And that's happened before because the contract only allows for so much at the lower price. So there'll be an increase next month in your utility bills. So I just wanted the City of Virginia residents to know that.
Maybe some of the money they have from the dissolution agreement, there's money that's there, could be set aside for that. I don't know the process there and what they have there. I'm sure you're going to rebut what I say, but I just want to make it clear that, you know, making sure that we try to minimize any expense to the city residents, particularly in this time where it's really needed for those who have a difficult time affording it, to be able to make those adjustments because it went over their gas purchase. They may have the capability to make some adjustments within the budget to prevent that increase, whether it be for 1 month or two. Councilor Bear.
I didn't quite finish. If you didn't hear, I said maybe an increase in the rates. But they are going to be sitting down internally to discuss exactly what you're talking about. They did mention that also. Okay?
Well, thank you very much for that.
But it's quite significant. I don't know if they want the exact amount to go out there, but I suppose it can, because it was public and on TV. It's over $400,000 extra in expenses and gas for this cold section of the month.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councilor Johnson.
Living in northern Minnesota, what would possess the utility to sign a contract that says if it's cold, we're going to pay more?
No, Steve, they don't do that. They go back and look at history of what the winters have been over a long period of time, and then they do their best on their pricing to keep it for the whole year or 2 years, wherever they meet the contractor. But you can't predict 32 below zero weather for 2 weeks. You can't predict that. And if they do that, they have to
Bearbu, I
pay. They have to,
appreciate that.
they have to pay either way. If they don't use the gas, they pay. If they use it, they pay. So if they don't use that gas, they still got to pay for it.
Okay,
So it comes out Mox Nix in the end.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my point is that we're not going to see a reduction on our bill next winter if it never goes below 32 degrees. If we use less gas next year, we're not going to see a rebate on our bills.
No, because
Exactly, and so, and that's my point is,
They average.
I understand the average,
Average, but
but
they-
I don't feel as a utility person, I should be punished because the weather was colder.
you're not being
So
punished.
I understand what it is. I'm not arguing, I'm expressing what I'm sure everybody watching this right now is feeling, that why do I need to pay in northern Minnesota extra money for gas I need when it is what it is. I understand it's going to be what it is, but the opposite is true. We're not going to get a rebate if next year it doesn't freeze. So I appreciate where you're coming from. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councilor
Well,
Bearable?
just to let you know, Britt is right. They do an averaging on this, and they do go out for a little longer-term contract at a lower rate over this time. And you can notice right now, their contract will still hold for a time frame longer if they don't use in excess. And you've noticed right now the price of natural gas is going way up right now. So you want to have a contract long-term, which they do. So the next month, if it's not cold, you'll have the same rate again. Other than they have to catch up with what they lost if they decide not to use their own funds, and they may do that.
Okay, thank you. Well, communication is the key. And so we're trying to communicate with the general public from this venue that didn't get communicated to the public from the public utilities venue. So that explanation that was given about the contract and those kind of things helps facilitate a larger conversation for the general public to make those inquiries to the Department of Public Utilities. So thank you. Anything else? Okay, we'll move to item 11, department head reports. Does anybody
I
sitting
do
here?
have,
Councilor Beyondich, go ahead.
thank you. I just wanted to report on the library meeting that we had and just let everybody know that Jody and the staff are doing a fabulous job. They are cleaning, moving things around, and as you can see, there's a whole lot for sale. So they're doing a great job. I just wanted to let everybody know.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Yeah, I had a chance to tour that facility. Jody was very energetic and gave me, showed me all the nooks and crannies that I probably haven't seen since the 6th grade. So thank you very much for that, Counselor Beyondich. Okay, any other reports? Counselor Barnzelli. Counselor Barnzelli has a
Park and Rec.
Park and Rec report.
I'd like to get Brian to come up. He's the man, and he explained to us. We were there for 2 hours.
Okay. Here we have Counselor Barnzelli, the liaison for the Virginia Park and Rec Department, referring to our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, for a report. Is that correct, Counselor Barnzelli? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Brian?
We actually had a very busy Park and Rec Commission meeting this past time. It was well over 2 hours of very good productivity, working on a lot of the operational things that will be going on in the new MEC. So just to give you a heads up, they are forwarding on a lot of things for the City Council to approve at next week's Committee of the Whole meeting. So lucky you, you get to witness firsthand 2 hours worth of Park and Rec Commission meeting productivity. Also, we did have election of new officers. Gabe Zika is our new president. Mike Mohar is vice president, and Carly Gobats is our new secretary. So we had our new slate of officers begin here this past month, and with that, we did the election of officers. So we have a new group in charge, and we're moving forward, and hopefully they can fill the big shoes that were left behind for them by those who rotated off the commission this past year. Other than that, I look forward to being before you again on Tuesday to explain a lot of the rental packages and contracts and everything that we are looking at implementing for renting of the MEC.
Thank you, Brian. Anything else you'd like to add to that, Counselor Barnzelli? Okay, thank you. Way to delegate. Perfect. Okay, thank you, Brian, very much. Okay, any other counselor has a liaison report or information they'd like to give from the department head perspective?
Not from the department, I know.
Okay, Counselor, okay, so we'll move to item 12, council reports or inquiries. Counselor Friedlieb.
Just real quickly, last Tuesday, Brian and I had the opportunity upon an invite from the Friends of the Greenhouse. So we went to that meeting, and they just, reiterated the value of that facility that we have and the beauty of that facility. They did have a recent evaluation done by some professional that indicated the need for a fogger of some sort or some kind of effort made to bring down the bugs. And so Brian, in conversation with them, assured them that there was going to be money in the budget from Park and Rec to provide that kind of service for them, and that would help them immensely. They introduced a new girl. Her first name was Lauren. I can't remember the last name. A recent graduate from River Falls who's working as a forester with the Soil and Water Conservation District, who had 2 years of experience in a botanical garden while she was in college. So she's a great addition to the Frog group. One of the things that they did bring up, though, is that we had recently passed the MOU that actually words that the Frog group has the use of the facility, and they just kind of wanted the word out there that they do a lot more than just use that facility, and that they're actually managing and operating and doing a lot of things beyond just the use of that facility, and hope that in the future that wording can be tweaked a little bit to kind of more accurately reflect what they're doing on behalf of the city for that facility. So it was a really great meeting. There's a great group of people that are involved in that facility and keeping it kind of a gem for the city, complementary to the park and the improvements we've made there with the fountain and so on. So it was a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just need to do a little shout out to the Recovery Alliance of Duluth. They had a sliding party in Virginia on Sunday, I think. I have to go back. Sunday, Deputy Chief Nicola and his family were there, and then 3 of our officers that were on duty came and went sliding. Officer Trunk, Lieutenant Stromberg, and Officer Grivna and Teddy were all there. It was a great activity. It was one of the few activities I've seen that Teddy was not the center of the universe when he got out of the car. Lots of kids, they provided some refreshments, and it was just a real family-friendly activity, and seeing our officers there playing with the kids was amazing. They were racing down the hill. Everybody was safe. It was a very good time. So just wanted to say, thank the police department for coming and making it a good day.
Okay, yes, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Okay, any other council reports? Okay, anybody else have anything like to add before we adjourn to our next council meeting? Okay, thank you, everybody, for everything. Thanks for the staff for being here this evening. There is no other further business to come before the council tonight, so we will adjourn this meeting to our next council meeting, which will be Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. Everybody be safe. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a great evening. We stand adjourned.